Hey, what up, everybody? Stevie Breach coming to you. Last night's TNA Impact was so bad that it was horrible. It was one of the worst Impact shows I've honestly seen in a long time. And I understand they had to get the gimmick underway, where they had to get everything for the Bound for Glory series and up and running, making sure that everybody understood everything that was going along with it. They must have explained the rules to this 100 times during this show. It was almost to the point of it being as bad as WWE, pumping out like the app stuff. How they're always mentioning, go in the app, go in the app. They just kept showing us this scoreboard, how they showed how everything worked. I think that they just went over this one time. They said, this is it. And then maybe at the beginning of the show, and then at the very end of the show, unless it's the main event, you give us the leaderboard. That's all we need to know. I mean, it's basically pretty easy. If it's a submission, you get 10 points. If it's a pinfall, you get 7 points. If it's a countout, you get 5 points. A disqualification win gets you 2. If you have a draw, 2 points. And then if you lose by disqualification, which I guess they're just trying to make sure nobody's, cheating to win in here, you lose 10 points. It's just that fast. It's just that easy. The whole show opens with the 10 of 12 guys inside of the ring. Honestly, to me, I was like getting pissed because they set up this thing that it was going to be either Jeff Hardy or Robert Roode gets to call the first person out. And I'm like, they already ditched this and they're going with a separate plan. They're going to open this up with the Battle Royal. If you can remember back to last year, they opened the Bound for Glory series. The way they kicked it off with a not an Iron Man match, but a oh shit, you play it in the video games all the time where they just keep running the guys out there over and over and over. A gauntlet match is what it's called. That's how they started it. And basically, James Storm went, and he got 20 points for getting the win, and that kicked him off in the right direction, and everybody was picking James Storm to win the thing. This year, they opened it up with the gimmick of Open Fight Night. Everybody gets to call somebody out, and lucky for us, everybody called somebody out that was in the Bound for Glory series, so you got 6 matches where all the guys got to compete against each other. The whole show opened with everybody, trying to figure out who was going to get everybody, all set up along the way. They went over the point of, that Robert Roode had won before, and he lost. And they went over to the point of Jeff Hardy had won the Bound for Glory series, and he won. So it's not a guaranteed thing. If you win this thing, you're gonna become a huge star. For Robert Roode, he didn't win that match, but he won a match against somebody else, later, and it got him rolling in the right direction, where he became the champion, where he was the champion for the longest time in the history of the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And even though he lost the belt to Austin Aries, and I think he lost the belt, and then he lost 2 rematches, if I can remember right. I don't think he's got a title shot since. He's been stuck in this, this role as a tag team guy, which I guess the tag team's finally broken up, so maybe we can finally get him going in the right direction again. But what a great champion, what a great wrestler, and he was awesome in his little thing that he did with Austin Aries. But it's time for them to start building him up again. Ken Anderson versus Joseph Park. Horrible match. Ken Anderson had to cheat to win with Doc coming out, which led to them having a little bit of friction. I can understand them wanting to have somebody involved from Aces and Eights inside the Bound for Glory series. It does make sense. But right now you have Ken Anderson and you have Doc fighting against each other to see who's going to be the VP of the Aces and Eights. At the same point, you're going to have Ken Anderson as the main guy in there, except for Bully Ray. And Ken Anderson is more than likely going to get close to getting to the end of this, which is going to cause some friction also between Bully Ray and Ken Anderson. So, you get to see a little bit of dissension in the ranks, sort of like you always saw. What's the one thing that really stood out with the NWO when they really got there? They had a World War III, and Scott Hall won, which was to give him a title shot. Hulk Hogan kept on trumping Scott Hall to get that title shot, and finally there was some dissension where finally Scott Hall got to have his title shot, but he had to get basically called out on Monday Nitro in the middle of the ring in order to get this all going down. And then we had Jay Bradley, the guy who won Gut Check. He comes out, and this guy's got balls of steel. I made it in my other video. I was like, this is the guy that everybody's going to call out in order to have matches, because you want to get those easy points. He gets to call somebody out. He calls out the former champion himself, Austin Aries. He loses his match, but he honestly got a lot of respect from me in this one point. I thought he was going to be the whipping boy of this whole thing. I think they are going to try and make this guy as big as a star as they can using this Bound for Glory series. He might not get a lot of wins, but he is going to get a win along the way, and that's going to make you take a look at this guy and say, wow. But him versus Austin Aries. Austin Aries got the win there. From there, we also went to Hernandez versus Christopher Daniels. Christopher Daniels won his match. Frankie Kazarian against Brutus Magnus. It was pretty funny because Kazarian came out there and he cut a promo and he called somebody out and he lost his match. I think that was the only time that happened. But Magnus got 10 points for his big win. None of these matches are really that great. On paper, AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe sounded like it was to be a great match. They were, reliving their rivalry that happened back in the day, and it was the first time they've had a match in a long, long time. It went to a fucking time limit draw, which I guess you didn't beat either guy, and honestly, that's good for Samoa Joe. If you go back to the first Bound for Glory series, I think he had -5 points, because I just remember Alvarez yelling, -5 points. He never won a match the whole freaking time. It was travesty. Last year, Samoa Joe, I guess he got back in the good graces of TNA and he started getting pushed up towards the top. But AJ Styles, honestly, like I said, like with last year, James Storm, I think he was the one guy that he got to get to a huge lead at, and everybody kept looking at him. And this year, AJ Styles coming into this thing is the guy everybody is sort of picking to win this thing before one of the matches even happens. AJ versus Bully Ray is probably going to be the one thing. But in his first match, you give him a time limit draw. If you go back, AJ lost to the pay-per-view. You get a disqualification finish when he got his rematch against Kurt Angle on Impact. And then this week you come out and he can't even beat Samoa Joe. So, basically you're saying this guy is, either, the third or the fourth best guy in the company behind the champion Bully Ray. If he's the guy that's supposed to be leading the charge for TNA to get up to the point that they can beat the Ace and Eights where they have to work together, you gotta have this guy start winning matches. I know we can't go undefeated through the whole thing, but maybe winning the first match is a good way to get it in the right direction. Jeff Hardy versus Bobby Roode was a damn good match. Jeff Hardy got the win there. From the whole thing from last week, building to this week, was Sting was gonna bring back the main event Mafia. He was feeling that the only way he was going to be able to take down Ace and Eights if he got the family back together. The only problem with this is Scott Steiner is suing the company. He's more than likely not coming back. Kevin Nash is under a freaking Legends contract with WWE. They're probably not going to let him go there. Then you got freaking Booker T, who's the GM of SmackDown. We haven't seen him in a while, but he's still got a freaking contract with the guys. So what's he going to do? He does reach out to the one guy that was inside this group. During the show, before the show even started, it opened up with Sting walking down the ramp. The ramp that you always see limos and people dropping off to make him seem like it's really important. And Sting doesn't drive down. He just walks down. Last week's Impact was in Atlanta. Was he that pissed off that he had to join the Mafia that he walked all the way from Atlanta to this show that I think was in New York? Did he take a cab there and the cab didn't get to drive down the ramp? Did he drive his own car? I have no idea, but that's the biggest way to make this guy look like a geek is he has to walk into the arena when we know that all these limos drive in there and all these just regular cars, Hummers, drive into the arena all the time. It just made this guy look like a geek. They did show Sting in the back shaking hands with somebody that was inside a suit, but of course it was under the dark shadows of what was going on, so you didn't get a real clear thing of what was going on. He did shake hands with somebody, and I thought he had black fingernails, so I thought it was going to be Jeff Hardy. That's who I was leading up to who was going to be there. But then, near the end of the show, Bully Ray has a face-off with Sting. Sting, is giving it to Bully Ray. Bully, turns around and he starts to head back up the ramp like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And he's met another but Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle knocks this guy down. He slaps in the ankle lock right away, and he looked badass. This was the only thing on this show that was worth anything to me. I honestly popped for it because, like I said, I was looking for Jeff Hardy, and out came Kurt Angle. Even though he's one of the easiest picks to put into this group because he's in the group. But I don't know. Honestly, I gave TNA a shitload of money to go to Bound for Glory this year. So I'm going to stick with this company and stick with it. But I didn't see one good review. I didn't read one good thing on Twitter. This was a horrible show, like I said. Horrible. Bad show. They need to get their shit fixed up. I haven't read any of the spoilers for next week. Now that I've said that, I can't read the comments on this video. More than likely because somebody's going to put them in there being a dick. But I've heard that they do some crazy shit next week. So hopefully next week's show is going to be better than this week's show. But honestly, from the people and the way that they were saying that what the spoilers look like, I'm not really looking forward to it. But I know some crazy shit goes down next week. So maybe next week's show will be better than this show. But the introductory to the Bound for Glory series sucked. It was horrible. The main event was, I guess the main event would probably be that Jeff Hardy versus Rude match, because that's the one they built up. But then you also got Samoa Joe versus AJ, which was pretty hyped up as well, and we haven't seen that match in a long time. But I don't know. Even though those matches were borderline good, no, they weren't great. Fuck that. But it wasn't able to carry the show. It was horrible. So peace out. Check you next week. Have fun, guys.